All right, welcome to another ranking here. And today we got another special guest. Today we have none other than Mr. Davey Cretin. Welcome,
Thank you, Joey. Thanks for having me.
as always. And today we decided you actually came up with this idea. I wanted to do it for the longest time, and then you go, "Hey, why don't we do this?" I said, "Hey, I'm ready. Let's do it." And we're gonna do
Nice.
tell them what we're gonna do today.
Ooh, me? Ooh. Top 10 tunes by Triumph.
Nice. All right, so obviously they have a how many albums did they have?
10.
10
10
albums.
studio albums.
Okay. So, yeah, that's about what, 90, 80 to 90 songs pretty much in the range for Triumph. So we're just going to give everybody what we feel are a top 10, and we'll throw some honorable mentions in there because obviously it's, there's always a couple songs you really feel strong about that you kind of leave out, and it's not that you intend to do it, it's just that there isn't enough room when you can only pick 10 songs.
Yes, a top 20 would have been a lot easier, but
Well, it probably would have been a little bit harder in my aspect though, because then if you forget a song or if don't put something in there that people are expecting, then you're going to hear about it. At least if you cut it down to 10, you can say, hey, there was only 10 songs. There's 10 more I could have put in or 20, what can you do? But all right, so we'll do the typical back and forth, starting with the number 10. So what do you got for us there?
okay, I have some different choices, I would say, on my list. I could have taken the greatest hits and put all 10 tracks, but I thought that was too easy. And there's some deep cuts I really love that I don't think get enough attention in this catalog. So, starting off from their ninth studio album, 1987's Surveillance, get the glare off of it. A very deep track, a Rik Emmett song, of course, Let the Light Shine on Me. From their ninth studio album, 1987 Surveillance, this is the band's big studio production number on this particular album. Surprisingly, they actually played this on tour when they toured in 87 and 1988, the Surveillance tour, which surprised me because it seems like you need almost an 8 or 10 man lineup to do this number live. And I love the lift into that big, beautiful chorus of Rik Emmett's. It's one of the myriad things that I enjoy about Triumph is their positivity. And it really shines through on this song. No pun intended there. I also enjoy Emmett's guitar solos before and after the brief middle eight section. And the whole intro, the studio production work on the intro and the outro to this 5.5 minute song, it just shimmers with production values and positivity. And I think it's a really good unknown song. So that's number 10 from Surveillance, Let the Light Shine on Me.
All right.
Over
And
to
then,
you, sir.
yeah. And just to expand on that a little bit further, yeah, they only did like a handful of shows on the Surveillance tour. It never actually was a full all out tour because at that point Rik has already given his notice, and he did tell him he'll play as many gigs as he can fit in, for them, which would be the last one would have been a Toronto show, believe it or not, at Kingswood Music Theatre, which is inside Canada's Wonderland amusement park there in up north of Toronto there. So an interesting thing there. Unfortunately, we did get a couple more Triumph shows when they did the Swedish rock festival there and the Rocklahoma.
Yes, 2008.
Yeah, it's just sad though that we couldn't get any other shows because it would have been great to see this lineup do like a at least once around the USA tour or something like that because there's a lot of people out there who never got a chance to see him. I can consider myself very lucky
I never
because
saw them. When did you see them?
I saw him on the Sport of Kings.
Wow.
That's how lucky I was because that was when I was finally able to go to concerts. And who would have thought it'd be the only show I would have ever seen? I never would have imagined that back in the day, because Triumph was one of these bands. Buffalo's real close to Toronto, so we
Mm-hmm.
had this good, with Triumph. They were a real big band here, And who would have just thought that they wouldn't even be around after pretty much 86. That's the last time they ever played here, unfortunately. But so that's sad that it didn't. I'm just, like I said, I'm very lucky that I got to see it at all. So I'm happy for that. So number 10, I went through my list here and I pulled up none other than the song that charted at number 102 from Allied Forces. And this is one of those songs that only got airplay in certain areas, which is why it was never really given much legs. But Rik Emmett did note down that this is one of the songs that got longer legs than most tracks on this album. And that's none other than Say Goodbye, one of the songs that I mentioned to him when I went to interview him. And yeah, it was great song. Got a lot of airplay over here in Buffalo, and but unfortunately, it just didn't really catch on in a lot of other areas, which Rik explained. Certain markets, certain songs broke bigger on. Unfortunately, it just didn't always transcend in the sales all over the place like you would expect. And of course, I feel their record company really let them down. First they were with RCA. They were unhappy with them. They got out of there. They went to the Music City of Cemetery of America, and that's another story in itself. So yeah, these guys just never were properly promoted. If they had gotten any kind of decent promotion, they could have definitely done a lot better. And perhaps, who knows? Maybe had they actually had that real good breakout where they really sold a lot of albums, that I would say they would have needed like another Allied Forces in their arsenal. But at that late in their career, they were already focusing more on, if you look at Sport of Kings, they were starting to trend down towards that type of music. So, luckily Surveillance was a little bit more return back to the rock, compared to the pop of Sport of Kings. But it is what it is. But yeah, so Say Goodbye, number 10.
That's a great choice. It probably would have made my top 20. Excellent song. And I do not remember that getting airplay on the New York City rock radio stations at the time. That was not one of the airplay tracks from that album, but it's a great song nonetheless. Okay, moving on to my number 9. Number nine. From their 8th studio album, you just mentioned it, The Sport of Kings, the big hit, Somebody's Out There. In a perfect world, this would have been a top 10 charting song. It only hit number 33 in the US on the Billboard singles charts. It's bouncy, it's buoyant, and it's upbeat. But as my notes say, the band gave MCA a hit single, and of course, the Musical Cemetery of America, MCA, dropped the ball on this song. All of Triumph's disparate elements come together for a perfect pop tune, and their label really missed out on this one. It should have been a big hit. Starting out with a catchy synth line, Mike Levine on bass and Gilmore on drums, both provide a steady backbeat to Rik Emmett's powerful Flights of Fancy here. A nice brief guitar solo from Emmett on this song. It's just a very catchy, upbeat song, and it should have done better in the charts. The video was on MTV, the song was on rock radio, but it just didn't cross over to top 40, or barely crossed over to top 40. So that's my number 9. Somebody's Out There.
Yeah, what number did you say that was?
33 on the Billboard chart.
Actually, it actually went to number 27.
Oh, okay. Then I got the wrong information.
But you're close, and the whole point of why I brought it up, not to obviously these charts are all, was the fact that it was and is the band's highest charting single, which is odd because this is my number 9. That's why I'm carrying on about it right now. I can't believe we picked the same song at number 9. That's amazing. But anyhow,
that I did not see coming.
So, but like you said, catchy, and oddly enough, they didn't feel they had a single for the album. So this song was the last one written for the album, and Rik kind of wrote it, real quick and right at the end there. And for it to have as much success as it did was kind of surprising. It just, one of those things though that after that they didn't really have that second song to help propel the album, higher in the charts than what it did. But nonetheless, this song is definitely one of the true gems of the catalog. And actually, this isn't going to be my only note from this album, but it is definitely, in my estimation, the most catchiest song on the album.
Easily, yes.
So that should take us down to our number 8.
And speaking of the Sport of Kings album, my number 8 song comes from this album, although it's a polar opposite of Somebody's Out There. It's the hard rocking song, Play with the Fire. I love Emmett's powerful guitar work and his lead vocals on this song. He hits the stratosphere with some of the notes he hits and the high falsetto voice he uses. And there's some great fiery fretwork throughout. And how about that guitar solo in the middle? It's just fantastic. It's one of my favorite guitar solos that he ever did. And he throws in a lot of speedy type hammer-ons and Eddie Van Halen type pyrotechnics. Emmett's a very underrated player, in my opinion. This is, in my opinion, the definition of a divine deep album track. And it's a barn burner of a tune, and Emmett just fires on all cylinders. And it's always been one of my favorite Triumph songs. And also some sterling outro guitar licks from Rik Emmett as well. And this song, I think, shows why he is a true guitar hero, even though he's underrated and undervalued. So Play with the Fire from Sport of Kings is my number 8.
Yeah, and you're right about that song. It's kind of buried in the album. It's like one of the last tracks near the end of the album on side 2.
Yep, exactly.
Which and it's one of the long. Actually, it is the longest song on the album. Actually, at 5 minutes and 18 seconds. So very interesting there. Um, as bad as Sport of Kings gets a bad rap, mostly because of Just One Night and Gilmore's, wanting to be the lead singer and sing on all the hits now and all this stuff that was going on there. This album is definitely, not as bad as people make it out to be. It's got 11 tracks on there, including the instrumental that did. It's a really short song that leads right into Play with the Fire. But yeah, good choice there. That was
Thank
definitely
you.
would have been on one of my, if we had more songs, it definitely would have been on one of my choices too. But my number 8 is actually another song from the same album. So Sport
Okay.
of Kings getting all this love right around here. I don't know how much more it will get going forward, but I got at number 8 none other than the leadoff track, the track they opened the um tour for the Sport of Kings with, and that's none other than Tears in the Rain, the Gilmore vocalist song. And I don't know, I just love the beat, the beginning, how it kicks in, and then Gil starts singing. Gil's got one of those very unique voices too. He can really belt out a song, as you can see on, he sang many of the songs in the Triumph catalog. That's one thing
Yes.
people always think because Rik Emmett seemed to sing on all the main radio songs, but you got Gilmore cranking out, like, at least people should know, at least even if you're not all that familiar, you've heard this guy before because he sang at least 10 Triumph songs that got a lot of airplay, even though they might not have been quote hits. But
Right.
this song here should have been bigger than what it was. This is definitely MCA, shit in the bed, as I would say. They should have, even the band felt highly on this song if they're opening up their show with it. Because like Rik Emmett said, the only way we're going to put a song in the set is if it's popular enough that people like it or know it or whatever. And obviously to open up with this song instead of, some of the many they could have opened up with, it goes to show you how strong they felt it was. But once again, like we said, the music cemetery of America just didn't see it that way, and just another poor promotion part on their end there.
And it was the lead track, if I remember correctly. I just checked my pile. I don't have it. The original Triumph Greatest Hits CD. I don't have it with me here. That's the lead track, Tears in the Rain, the first track on that CD, I'm pretty sure.
On which album?
The original Greatest Hits that came out in the late 80s.
Ah, okay.
Tears in the Rain was the #1 track. It's called Triumph Classics.
Classics, yeah. Yeah, it was.
I have the redone version. It's not even on the redone version. I have the Triumph Greatest Hits remixed CD DVD set. And Tears in the Rain is not on this Greatest Hits CD, which is weird. It was on the first one. And they added songs. It's 14 songs and it's not on here. Weird.
Well, a lot of times with greatest hits, as you're probably aware, sometimes the record companies put those out just to cash in on them when a band wasn't making albums to help get sales and keep the band's name out there.
Yes.
But a lot of times too, later on, the bands themselves, when there was another compilation coming out, it seemed like more in the later years of a band, you'll notice that they have more say and decide what should be on it, and they get more creative control over the greatest hits, because by then they've either not even on this label that they initially came out on, or whatever the case may be. That's usually one of the things, because now nowadays there's not many labels that are left from the big days. When some of the really big labels were out there, like MCA, they got bought out by Universal, and today Universal is probably the biggest company out there with all the other companies that they bought underneath their umbrella now.
The original Greatest Hits CD, I think, came out in 1989.
Yeah.
A couple of years after Surveillance came out. And this one is 2010 on their own label. So they changed it up a little. And this was probably to promote the fact that they got back together in 2008 to play the Swedish Rock Festival.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, too, you're putting out another album, another greatest hits. Do you really want the same exact songs on the first one? Because then you're not going to get, people might say, well, why would I want another one when I already got all those songs? So, there's a lot of factors that go into why certain songs would go on, even as much as the greatest hits album. All right, what do you got for, we're on 7 now?
Yes, number 7. I am going to go back to their last studio album with Rik Emmett from 1987 from Surveillance. And this song features Gil Moore on lead vocals.
What?
Yes, Headed for Nowhere.
Oh, great song.
Oh, I love that song. I've always loved that song. It's always been my favorite from the album. Emmett's fleet-fingered fretwork highlight this hard rock number. Gil Moore also turns in a very good vocal performance on this upbeat rocker. The 6-minute song is definitely, in my opinion, the highlight on the Surveillance album. Emmett fires off some smoke and guitar solos along with his memorable lead guitar riff that starts the song. Just a great riff, and his playing on the song is amazing. Shows why he's such a great player. So that is my number 7, Headed for Nowhere. Excellent song. That should have done better on rock radio.
Well, I think the length of the song, it's weird because I was thinking about this. I remember hearing this one on Q107, which was the main Toronto rock station up here in Toronto, up above north of me, 2 hours from me. And I used to hear that song on there, but I don't remember it being so long. I'm wondering if they had some kind of a radio edit version.
It's
because
possible.
I remember hearing it, but I tried looking it up. I haven't seen anything regarding that, but regardless, yeah, definitely. Even though it is at 6 minutes, it's definitely a solid track. So even if it was a full 6-minute version, who cares? It's a good song is a good song. It doesn't matter how long or how short it is.
Hold On got airplay, and that's 6 minutes also.
Yeah. All right. So that was your number 7. I'm going to take us back in time because, like they say, time goes by. Triumph, Thunder 7. Probably, I think that's the first song I ever heard off the album. They did some kind of a play the album from beginning to end one night, and they would do that for like a week where they would play some of the better songs on the album on our local radio station. So for some reason, that song I was the first I heard, and it just stuck with me. What a deep gem that pretty much kind of hides on Thunder Seven. You know, it didn't get
Yeah.
a lot of airplay per se, like the two singles did. But had they released this one, you know, maybe I don't know. It's hard to say because the some of those other songs that are on the album were strong. I mean, Thunder Seven to me is the best Triumph album. That's just my take on it. If you watch our
I
video,
concur.
if you watch our our video where that me and our the astute Tom Jennings did back in a couple of years ago, you know, we ranked them, and I had Thunder Seven right up there, and that's definitely, in my take, the best Triumph album overall. I think it's the most solid, consistent level right through from beginning to end. Um,
I
but
agree with you, but I agree, but I think most people would say Allied forces.
well, that's the thing. I'm not most people.
Same here. I think we're in the minority when it comes to this.
Yeah, but I just love this album when it came out. You know, I'm so sad I didn't get to see that tour because I think in estimation that was probably the last really, really good Triumph tour because it was like after that they did the Sport of Kings and I did see that tour, and while you know I'm glad that I saw it, I was kind of disappointed in what I saw because they only played like 12 songs and instrumentals, and it was, to me it was just kind of not what I expected. I thought I would have expected a better show overall from them. So I was left actually disappointed, even though I got to see it. If and I know how good that the Thunder Seven album was, that tour, because I had a lot of friends that went, and I remember they talked about it for like months after the fact. And if you look at the set list from that tour, beats the heck out of this Sport of Kings tour for sure. So number seven, Time
Yeah.
Goes By.
Okay. Moving on to a song that was just mentioned inadvertently, coming in at number 6 on my list. It's from the Just a Game album, their third studio album, the aforementioned Hold On from 1979. And this 6-minute Rik Emmett anthem, it starts off as a gentle folk type ballad, and then it morphs into a giant rock anthem about a minute and a half into the song. And once again, this song is all about Rik Emmett's underrated guitar work, both on the acoustic guitar and electric. And I really like Gilmour's drum fills on this song. It adds a really good touch. And he does these little drum fills on a lot of songs throughout their catalog. And I think he's a bit of an underrated drummer. And considering the fact that he was singing, you know, lead vocals, backing vocals, and playing drums at the same time, it is not an easy skill to master. So kudos to Mr. Gilmour. But I think Hold On is an amazing song, and that's why it's number 6 on my list from Just a Game, 1979, their third LP. Joseph?
Well, my number 6 is going to probably be the highest ranking Gilmour song,
Okay.
and not David Gilmour, but Gilmour. And then we're just going to tell you what it is right now. And it's from the aforementioned Thunder 7. It was the single, you know, from that album that did really well, but not well enough to make the top 40. But it was none other than Follow Your Heart, which Gil sings the leads on. Pretty cool how Rick's voice also, he sings like the choruses.
Yeah, the
And,
high
you know,
harmonies.
yep, and they stand out. And he mentioned, you know, all about that in the video that I'll include the link on with this. So if you ever want to catch the Rik Emmett interview that we discussed with him just about 2 weeks ago with his brand new book that he came out with, his memoir there, um, definitely check it out. So yeah, Thunder 7, another, you know, Follow Your Heart got tons of airplay around here. You know, it was one of those songs that just kept growing and growing. It's just amazing how, you know, as much as you heard some of these songs on the radio, they just didn't really do much on the charts. And that, to me, that's proper. It's improper promotion from MCA. You know, there's no doubt
Yes.
about it. For that song to only reach number 88 and that's the only song. There was 2 songs released as singles from under 7. Spellbound, which is the other Gilmore song, didn't even
Mhm.
chart. So here's a band with a brand new record company they just got signed to, and there's like no promotion out there to push these songs. I mean, not saying that Spellbound is I probably wouldn't have released that song as the first single on the album. There's a mistake right there. Whoever came up with that brilliant idea there. But Follow Your Heart should have been the lead single, followed by probably Time Goes By, and who knows what else could have been after that. But you know, it, it's in hindsight now, but I just feel that if you put side by side Follow Your Heart and Spellbound, there's no doubt Follow Your Heart is the better song. That's just my take on it. I just felt MCA just, they did these guys wrong. They really did, unfortunately.
They
But
did a lot of rock bands wrong. They were never great. They never were great with promotion when it came to rock bands. They did a lot better with R&B acts and pop bands,
and
pop
Olivia.
artists and R&B bands. That was their bread and butter. I mean, look at Night Ranger. What happened when they were on MCA? They pegged them as a ballads band, released a lot of ballads, and it caused a lot of friction in the band.
Yeah, no doubt. So Follow Your Heart is my number 6. So we're gonna crack into the top 5. What do you think we got with top 5? Let's start off with your number 5 here.
From their third studio album, 1979's Just a Game, comes one of their best songs, Lay It on the Line. And surprisingly, I was surprised when I looked at it that this is only a 4-minute song. It seems longer, it seems like a mini epic song, yet it's not. But it's an amazing Rik Emmett song. As I wrote this afternoon when I made these copious notes, this 4-minute power rock song highlights both Emmett's guitar and vocal prowess. Longtime fan favorite, it's morphed into one of their most beloved songs. Emmett is one of rock's most underappreciated singer, songwriter, guitar players for decades now. And this song shows off all of his talents and fine fiddle and just maybe his defining moment in the band Triumph. So at number 5 from me, is Lay It on the Line.
And also the name of his book.
Correct. Which I should have brought out. I have it in the other room, but I have it. I haven't read it, but I do own it. Thanks to my wonderful girlfriend, Tia. Thank you, Tia. Over to you, Joey.
All right, my number 5 is Hold On. And it's the only other Triumph song to make the top 40, coming in at 38 there. So like you said, it's amazing how you see some of these other songs that are about the same length as it, but it just never, some of them never really did anything, or they were never released as singles, or whatever the case may be. But Hold On is a whole different bird itself, like you said, it's got all the different changes, and it goes from one kind of a song to another. And Rik said too that they would not play that song every night. That wasn't a Triumph standard in the set list. And the reason why, is because it was there was a lot of hard parts to kind of copy from the album on there. So they agreed after a while where they would just, during the bigger markets where the song went to number 1, like St. Louis was one he threw out there for sure. Um, they would only play it acoustically. That way the fans would at least get to hear it, but they wouldn't play it every night. So I guess, that was good that they didn't wear it out themselves, but it's just weird how the way the band looked at performing, I think a lot of you could tell there was a lot of creative differences in the band, starting even way back then. There's even though he didn't come out and say it and everything, you could just kind of picture, you know, why they weren't playing certain songs in concert. He would come up with, well, it's a softer song, no, 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 no. But I mean, you can always compensate, do it acoustically like you did with Hold On, do it this way, do it that way. You know, it just sounded like a lot of those other guys just didn't want to play a lot of those songs in concert. You know, I mean, I thought "Say Goodbye" should have definitely been a concert song. You know, that one screams concert. It's heavier than a regular traditional ballad. So why they never did that one was kind of, you know, I didn't like his answer to that one on my interview, but you
Well,
know, because
he did say, and I'm sure he says it in the book too, that he joined Gilmore's band, and it
yeah,
was Gilmore's band. Moore's band was Triumph. So I'm sure there was a lot of push and pull and a lot of give and take.
yeah.
And even though Emmett, I think, wrote the bulk of the music, Moore wanted a lot of the creative control because it was his act.
Yeah, a lot of the songs on the earlier albums, if it was like they would all share equal writing credits pretty much on most of them. There's a few where Rik just got sole because for whatever reason he really did just contribute the only person on those songs, but there was only like maybe, you know, maybe a handful, you know, where he actually did that. But
And I think almost every album, if not every album, begins with a song that features Gilmore on vocals, lead vocals.
yeah, it's
So
an
there was
interesting
probably an
yeah,
agreement to that in the beginning. It's my band. I'm going to sing the lead-off track on the record.
interesting. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. But too, you want to hit them hard out of the gate on the album too. So all the Gil does sing the harder, heavier songs, which you would expect that to take place for sure. All right, so that was my number five. Hold on, the Triumph Classic from none other than the just a game there. And
Okay,
what do you?
my should I do my number four?
Let's do it.
Here's the back cover. Do you know what album it is?
Of course, everybody knows that cover.
Allied Forces, 1981. Their big breakthrough album, at least in the States. And my number four song coming from Allied Forces, Fight the Good Fight. I'm going to go to my notes now. All the band members shine on this 6-minute mini masterpiece. Mike Levine on bass and keyboards, Emmett on his, oh wait, I made a mistake with my notes. That would be Gilmore on his crashing and bashing drum kit, and Emmett on guitar and vocals. Of note here is Emmett's rhythm guitar work on all the verses of this song. He plays some nice sort of disco type sounding guitar, very riffy, rhythmic guitar work. It's great, I think. Another song with a chorus is super elevated and upbeat. It's a real David versus Goliath type of situation with this song, fighting to overcome the odds, fighting the good fight. Rik also shines with his outro guitar work. And on a lot of these songs, I noticed just as he's burning and going on the guitar, a lot of the Triumph songs fade out. And it would be great to hear one day if there were extended outros of a lot of the songs with some more great Emmett guitar work. So coming in at number four, from Allied Forces, 1981, their fifth album, if memory serves. Right? Their fifth album?
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. Yes, their fifth album. Fight the Good Fights. Over to you, good sir.
All right, and that is going to take us to my number four, which is coming from the lone representative from Never Surrender for me, and that would be none other than the glorious A World of Fantasy. Great, fantastic song. You know, it's amazing how many times this was like the main song you would really hear on the radio over our way off this album. And you know, it's just odd how the band kind of yeah, they used to play it in concert, the first Never Surrender and the Thunder 7 tour. And then by the time they got to Sport of Kings, you know, it's like the whole set list kind of took a detour and went but you know, obviously, I just love A World of Fantasy. A true gem. It should have been a top 40 hit, but due to its lack of, it only got airplay in certain markets for whatever reason. So, I mean, but it was a big song on the radio here, you would just
Same
hear that.
down here. It was
You would
played
hear,
on the radio here.
yeah, you would hear that introduction, the beginning guitar work there, and then hear Rick's voice, and the song kind of starts off very slow and then kind of kicks in, just like most of Rick's songs usually do.
Yes.
Just a fantastic song, though. I'm just disappointed that the song never really, yeah, in my estimation, it's definitely, even though it got the airplay of the album, and it just never really got its true just due. Even to this day, you don't hear it anywhere anymore, really, even on classic rock radio over here, where, they play a lot of Triumph, but just not a lot of variety, sadly. So,
The way a lot of rock bands are, radio stations deal with the classic rock bands now.
yeah.
That's why radio, I don't even listen to it all that often. It's too boring. It's the same song over and over and over. And you get
Yep.
sick of the same songs. Play some variety.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Yes.
All right. So number 4 that's what we got for my number 4, and that's going to take us into the top 3.
Okay. This is my first entry from my favorite and your favorite Triumph record, Thunder 7. When they were promoting this album, I heard the band on a syndicated radio show that's no longer on the air called Rockline. And it was probably, knowing the way Gilmore and ran the band, it was probably him and Mike Levine getting interviewed. And they played a lot of songs from this album. And I went out and bought this on vinyl, which I still have somewhere in my vinyl copy. This was the first Triumph record I ever purchased in 1984 on vinyl, Thunder 7. And my choice, Killing Time, an amazing song that probably never got any radio airplay, but it should have. From their vastly underrated 7th studio album, 1984's Thunder 7, comes this gem of a tune on side 2, a rarity of a song in the Triumph catalog. It's almost a duet between Emmett and Moore on dual lead and alternating backing vocals. They swap back and forth. I wish they had more songs like this in their catalog, because the dichotomy of voices, it's great. The verse towards the end of the song, where they alternate lead vocals and each take a line, is one of the highlights in their whole catalog to me. And I just think this is a great underappreciated song, Killing Time from Thunder 7, 1984. That is my number 3 Triumph tune. Back over to you.
All right. Yep. And that's one of the songs that I definitely asked Rick all about and got a lot of good information about that one on there.
Yes. That was a good
Um,
interview, by the way. Good interview.
Thank
I
you.
watched it.
All right. So that takes me to my number 3, and that's going to be probably the most played Triumph song on the radio, because I'm young, I'm wild, and I'm free. I got the magic power in me. So none other than Magic Power, which was probably from the lead, the lead single from Allied Forces. That yeah, it's amazing that song didn't even crack the top 40, isn't it? How does that
Yes.
song not crack the top? I mean, that's one of those songs you always heard on the radio, but yet it never, you figured it would have been a glorified hit. Now, that's not to say that it didn't chart. It only reached number 51. And I think that was probably start of the time frame where they're starting to realize, hey, we put out this great song, we put out this great album, and we're still not really, where we would think we would be. But that's where, their shows got bigger. That's where they got all their popularity. That's the only album that made platinum out of the whole catalog.
Yes.
Um, but it's sad that, the album itself reached only number 23, you know. And that is their highest charting album, by the way. The next one would go up to number 26, which was Never Surrender, but Allied Forces, basically, I think Magic Power was the main song on it that really helped escalate this album to the platinum status because of the airplay. And Fight the Good Fight's another one from it that you had mentioned on one of your choices there. And oddly enough, Say Goodbye, so those were the three songs that were released as singles. And we mentioned about all of them, but Magic Power is definitely one of those songs that's really stood the test of time for Triumph. Um, what more can you say about it? Just a great, fantastic song, and definitely the number 3 song for me in the catalog.
Okay. Will we hear more about that song? I don't know. We'll see. Coming in at my number 2, I'm going back to my favorite Triumph album, Thunder 7. A song you mentioned already. Time Goes By is my number 2 Triumph song.
Nice.
I love this song. Love it, love it, love it. This muscular rocker that starts off side 2 of the original vinyl release almost topped my list, but it just didn't make it. Almost. Emmett's vocals soar to heavenly heights, and Moore and Levine sound divine together. Oh, not Levine, sorry. Moore and Emmett sound divine together on the pre-chorus. Moore also puts in an outstanding drum performance as well, with his clattering, shattering fills. Emmett's guitar solo that starts at the 3-minute, 38-second mark is one of my favorites of his career. And check out Mike Levine's bass that underpins his solo. It's excellent. A hard rock highlight of their catalog, Emmett's guitar outro solo is cut off far too soon. Like I mentioned before, they cut him off too early. They should have let him burn a little, but with the constrictions of the time limits on vinyl, I guess that's why they just faded a lot of the songs out back in the day. So number 2 from Thunder 7, Time Goes By.
Yay! Number 2.
Love that song.
All right. So that's going to bring me to my number 2. And probably the way my list is going here, this is probably going to catch some people off guard, I would assume, because this wasn't really a song that got a lot of airplay, and it really wasn't a song that they ever played live. But to me, this is like probably the penultimate Triumph song, except for my number 1, which you'll see shortly. But it's the title track. We're going to go all the way back to 1979, and the title track from Just a Game. Fantastic song. For some reason, Rik had mentioned that this song didn't really get much airplay. Well, it got airplay for me, or I would have never went out and bought this album. Once I heard that song, I immediately and Just a Game is like the first Triumph album I ever got. And, I would say that that's a very underrated album. If you look at that album as a whole, you got Moving On, you got American Girls. There's another one on there we're going to be talking about probably shortly, but the title track, Just a Game, and Hold On. I mean, it's amazing that that album hasn't gone, even after all these years. You figure people would have caught up to it and catch it and pushed it into platinum status. It's just amazing. That just goes to show you how bad RCA probably even buried this album, because this is just a great album, and I don't understand why it just hasn't done better, because that's how good it is. I mean, it went gold. It actually went platinum in Canada, so it's one of the 3 albums that went platinum in Canada. So the Canadians obviously knew that this was going to be a great album. They enjoyed it. Um, but for some reason, PR PR in the late 70s to 80s for rock bands, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, unless you were Boston or somebody, big like that, unfortunately. So, but other than that, just a great, fantastic song with all the different, the way he was describing it when we talked about the song was just, just amazing that at such a young age how he wrote such a complex song. There's a lot to the song with layers of guitars and the vocal performance is definitely probably my favorite out of all of this. Probably it's my favorite Rik Emmett vocal. But there's just one other song that I like just a smidge more, and we'll discuss that one in a moment. Back to you.
That's that song was on my larger list, which I'll get to later. Okay, my number one Triumph song has always been my favorite Triumph song when I first heard it on the radio 42 years ago from the Allied Forces album. Magic Power is my number one.
She turns her little radio on.
Easily my favorite song in their catalog, Magic Power, quite simply, is a magical song. From the acoustic 1 minute plus intro to the electrified ending, it's an amazingly powerful and upbeat number. All three cats in the band shine on this song. Of course, Emmett leads the charge, but Moore and Levine are no slouches as a rhythm section, so we must give them their credit where credit is due. Magic Power never fails to put a smile on my face, and that's why it's my number one Triumph song. Magic Power from Allied Forces, 1981.
Yeah, it's probably the most played Triumph song on the radio, even after all these years. But to me, I never get sick of it.
Same here.
Never, never. It's just one of those songs that more than anything, you probably crank it up louder when you if you're in the car listening to it or wherever you may be, you're cranking it up louder if you can. Just a great, fantastic song, which was my number three, your number one. So now I'm going to go with my number one, which is probably, I think you mentioned it a little bit ago, but it's none other than Lay It on the Line, the Rik Emmett book title and the first video I've ever seen from Triumph, and it was a song that got me into the band pretty much right from the get-go. That was just the main song that drew my attention to the band, and I really from there I just became such a huge fan. Uh, Lay It on the Line, catchiest song they sing overall. It's right next to Magic Power. They all have their things. I think Magic Power, Laid on the Line, just a game for me. Those three can alternate spots on any given day, but they're like all neck and neck. But I had to separate them off for this, for this thing. So it's tough to do when you got songs that are all like right neck and neck with each other because it could change on a daily basis. We could do this ranking 10 years from now. I would assume those three songs will still be in my top three, maybe in some other order, but they would still
Yes.
be in my top three just because they're just that great.
Even 10 weeks from today, it might change.
Well, we'll
10
make sure
months.
yeah, we'll do one from 10 years ago from this point on and see where we stand on this catalog. But yeah, so that was a great exercise here because it's not easy ranking songs. Albums are a little bit more cut and dry because you're either gonna like the album as a whole or the albums are a lot easier to rank than songs. Songs because it's so hard when you got such a good like we just mentioned, three songs in a row where any of them could have been in any three of the spots. It's really hard to make a case for where they're going to land. But my top 10 is definitely solid right now, but I did have a few honorable mentions and I know you did. So let's dig into those real quick.
Okay. From their debut album, this is the second pressing where they called it In the Beginning. From the first Triumph album, Blinding Light Show / Moonchild. It was hard to leave this song off. It's such an epic tune, very progressive rock style, like a lot of Rik Emmett's songs. He's a big prog rock fan. Then I will mention from the second album, Rock and Roll Machine. Here it is with the reissued cover. The title track, Rock and Roll Machine. Just that great Rik Emmett guitar solo and an excellent lead vocal performance by Gil Moore. It's a hard rock song, probably almost the closest they ever came to heavy metal. From Just a Game, I want to mention a song you mentioned, Just a Game. The title track, great song, Just Missed Out. on my top 10. From Progressions of Power, probably my favorite song, I Live for the Weekend. Great hard rock song. Let's see, Going to Never Surrender. And it killed me to leave these songs off.
These
One you
songs?
mentioned, one you didn't. A World of Fantasy is a great song, and it killed me to leave off that song. You described it very well. And the title track, Never Surrender, that was the one that got a lot of rock radio album airplay down here in the city.
Yep.
Never Surrender, great song, and it was hard leaving that off my top 10. And that's good. Those are my honorable mentions.
Okay. All right. I just have four. I think I just got only one that you mentioned in your top 10, and that was none other than Killing Time, which, I really just love that song for the same reasons that you mentioned. The back and forth between Gil and Rick on the vocals really makes that song stand out a lot more on that album than than a lot of the other songs on it. Um, Yeah, I would have loved to seen him do it that more. Even Rick had to think back. Did we do any other singing on any other songs during my interview? He's trying to think back through the catalog. He goes, I guess we didn't. He mentioned that he did do a lot of the harmonies on Follow Your Heart, which you can definitely clearly hear that. That was a
Absolutely.
no-brainer. But I do have two other Gilmore songs that I wanted to give honorable mentions to. Kudos, Gil. One of them is none other than the lead-off track to Rock and Roll Machine, which is none other than Takes Time. Going back there, back a long time ago there. I don't know. I just always liked that song. I thought it was one of the great openers for the album. Like you said, it always seems like Gil gets the opening tracks, and until you actually mentioned it, and you think about it, you go, man, you're absolutely right. It's like so odd how Gil always sang on all the opening cuts on the albums, but and not that they're bad, because most of the tracks that he opens up the albums with are the ones that get your attention right off the bat, which helps you keep the album going. In the CD age, a lot of people had their hands on the old skip button. Albums, obviously, you pretty much had to play them all the way through if you left them on the turntable and you didn't have time. Who wants to keep changing songs on an album? You just put it on and played it all the way through.
Yes.
It's just weird though, because back in the day, albums were they were so solid. There wasn't really a need to skip a song on an album, and you got the full experience of playing the whole album from beginning to end. Nowadays with these CD, when CD age came in, these bands would put more songs on an album, but yet you're always finding yourself skipping them because a lot of the songs they shouldn't even have been recorded. They were just filler, just to fill up space, because everybody felt that you had to put 74 minutes on a CD for some reason. I don't know, whose idea that was. I would have been satisfied on a lot of albums, as we talk album rankings, me and Tom had mentioned, this album is just a little too long in the tooth. Why didn't they chop off 2, 3 songs? You would have had a much better album overall, you
And you
know?
hear that a lot on these YouTube music discussion shows.
Yeah.
That a lot of people say the CD age, too many songs on an album, chop 3 or 4 songs off, you'd have a much tighter, better album.
Yeah, I think what they should have done, like, maybe just count them as bonus tracks where they weren't really part of the album, and just put them on there, because then you're actually just listening to the main album. There's a couple things they could have done, or really after the album's been out a while, you release an expanded edition that has all the B-sides or songs that, they wouldn't have normally put on the album, stuff like that. But, you know, it is what it is, and that's why you really see music taking a hit, after, pretty much the late 92, 93 is when all these groups were just jamming as many songs as they could fit on a CD for no real reason, really. It was just kind of pointless, and that's why it brings down the overall quality of the album, unfortunately. So
Sometimes
that was one Gilmore song, and the other one that I want to mention was I kind of mentioned it before, but it's an honorable mention. It was the opening track from Just a Game. And like you said, we're going to be moving on, moving on, moving on. Gilmore, great song. I always liked that song. And definitely was one of those songs that always stood out because obviously, like I said, that was the first cassette I ever bought was the for Triumph was Just a Game. So what a great way to kick off the album for sure.
I
And
like American Girls from that
yeah, oh
album. I
yeah,
think
oh yeah, yeah. It's just a fantastic album, pretty much, right? Suitcase Blues, the close. I mean,
that's another great
there's
song.
this that whole album is very vastly underrated and definitely has
It's in
not
my.
got
Oh, sorry.
yeah has not gotten its just due. You know, it just hasn't. That could rank right up there. You know, in my estimation, I don't remember where it fell, but I would assume it probably fell at number 2 or 3 in my Triumph catalog ranking for the albums. I would say it's definitely in the top 3. I don't remember exactly where it landed though, but you know,
It's in my top three also.
it's just a shame that it just hasn't gotten all the love that it deserved. But the last song I want to mention for my honorable mention was a Rik Emmett song going back to 1983, and that's from the Never Surrender album. Any guesses of what I'm thinking of? It has not been mentioned yet at all tonight, just to give you a rundown. So if you had to pick one other song from that album that you
Oh,
feel,
all the way.
no, nope,
Ooh.
Writing on the Wall. To me, very vastly underrated song. I don't know. I never really heard it before much because it kind of hides on the album.
Yes,
And
the next to last cut.
yeah, so when I was listening to the album to rank it, you know, back when me and Tom Jennings did the album rankings, maybe about a year and a half ago, I'm going, wow, where did this song come from? But yeah, phenomenal song. It really caught my attention and grown to become one of my favorites.
It's a good song.
Yeah, definitely another underrated one. That's what we like to do. Point out the underrated.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So any other last words you want to add for the Triumph thing here?
Tom wanted, he loves the song from the earlier period in their career, The City. That's one of Tom Jennings' favorite Triumph songs. So I just wanted to mention that for Tom. Hi, Tom.
And of course, that song takes place on the Rock and Roll Machine, the Canadian version. Of course,
Yep.
it wasn't on the U.S. version. That was another thing. You kind of had some weird things going on with the band because Triumph released their first album in Canada, which was just called Triumph, but
Right.
the first U.S. release was Rock and Roll Machine, which had a
Precisely.
totally different track listing than the Rock and Roll Machine version that Triumph released in Canada. So what they
Yes.
did basically, the American version takes like half the album of the first album and half the album of the Rock and Roll Machine, and they kind of merge them together. So there's a lot of songs that just aren't on, you know, the American version. So that's why one of the things, if you're getting into this band for the first time, we definitely recommend just getting the Canadian versions, which are the only ones you could probably get nowadays because when they released them on their own labels,
That's what they
re-released
put
the
out.
albums. Yeah, that's how they got it. So I don't even think you can even get you know, unless you get it used or something, you can't even get a US Rock and Roll Machine version anymore. Um,
Right.
you know,
And
unless
that's
you could.
how it is on streaming too. It's the Canadian versions of the albums.
Yeah, which I felt in a way, Rock and Roll Machine ranks higher as the US version if you were gonna rank them side by side, only because it's a more solid album because you're taking like the best tracks from each album and kind of making it like a you know a unique album. You know,
Precisely.
the first album in Canada, which was released in '76, um, Street Fighter, 24 Hours a Day, Blinding Light Show, Moonchild. Those ones are definitely on the newer updated version of the U.S. version. And then from the Canadian version, the U.S. version also took Takes Time, Bringing It On Home, and Rocky Mountain Way, and of course the title cut, Rock and Roll Machine. So two different albums, same album title, some differences, but overall, interesting. Interesting how that all came to be. There's not too many bands, at least from at least the modern era, that have had any weird things like that go on. Obviously, if you go back to the career of the Stones and the
And the
Beatles,
Beatles, yeah.
and they have the UK version and the US versions, and a lot of them are totally different up until a certain point, and then they finally released it to everybody pretty much all within the same time period. So the albums were you were getting the same album overseas that you were getting over here, but it took a while for some of the groups to really catch up to that thing. But yeah, it was great talking Triumph with you here. So I'm glad we were able to get these top 10 songs along with our honorable mentions here. Well, that concludes this episode here. Stay tuned for more episodes coming your way, just to give you a little bit of a thing to look forward to if you're a regular viewer of this channel. Going forward, we're going to review and rank the Peter Gabriel albums, solo album collection. And stay tuned for our new series Here, which the next episode will feature um, a little bit different format than our first two, where me and Tom Jennings were the main people on the video. We're going to bring some other people in to listen to the same albums. That way, you get a second viewpoint from each album, which should be nice. It's always good to get more viewpoints, so that way somebody else has a differing opinion on an album, which gives it a different take, which might some might appeal to people, others might not. So it just depends. But we'll give you as many sides of the coin that we can, so that way you can make that decision for yourself. So signing
Exactly.
off, yeah, signing off
Oh,
for this
just
episode. Oh,
one more thing, very fast. My new YouTube channel, Cretin Classics. I'm about to put up another new video in the next few days, so look out for that. Cretin Classics on YouTube, and thank you for having me, Joey.
yep. Make sure you subscribe to all our videos and Davey's videos. Tuning in with Tom. Make sure you go to that YouTube page. We'll put that in the link as well. And yeah, any other questions, comments, make sure you leave them in the in the comments section on YouTube, or go to our website at rockshowcritique.com, where we have a full website designated there for concert reviews, interviews, and many more things. So stay tuned. We let the music do the talking.